The Connector Next Door is your invitation to meet the natural connectors all around us. They represent the everyday event planners who are energizing their communities every single day. Their stories are familiar, fun, and full of charm. Your host, Lisa Garrow, is a lifelong event planner and has been a connection strategy coach for over a decade. She knows events can become energized connecting points where communities can gather and grow. Let's listen in as she strikes up a conversation with today's Connector Next Door.
Caitlyn Hamblin is a natural connector, creator, and podcast enthusiast. She learned from her mom, who she called the mayor of Truro, Nova Scotia, how to walk up to anyone and make them feel seen, heard, and considered. Caitlyn is an executive assistant in business development and marketing at Lindsay Construction. She's based in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, near Halifax, an Atlantic Ocean port in eastern Canada, which is the provincial capital of Nova Scotia. A leader in her profession, she puts her connection savvy to work. As the president of the Atlantic branch of the Association of Administrative Professionals, or AAP for short. Caitlyn was on the planning committee for the AAP National Conference this last year, and I was honored to be chosen to speak to the 50 admin pros in attendance. In our conversation today, Caitlyn expresses how, when we're surrounded by people we naturally connect with, we can do great things. And I agree. At the end of the day, Caitlyn reminds us that to keep connections strong, we need to be intentional about reaching out, while at the same time taking care of ourselves along the way. Well, welcome everyone back to the Connector Next Door. And it is a new season of this podcast. So many things I love about these conversations about connection because it goes in 100 different directions. And we were just talking before I hit record how you and I have met through other connections in our lives, and now seeing all sorts of expansive ways that we can be building connections together. But welcome here. I'm so glad you're here, Caitlyn.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
You are leading the Atlantic Canada branch of the AAP, which is the Association of Administrative Professionals in Canada. And you and I met virtually for the first time a while back, but then face to face when I was in PEI just recently. Getting together and seeing people face to face, what was that like for you to actually be face to face with some of your colleagues and peers?
Oh, it was so nice. It was amazing meeting you in person. I think we definitely naturally connected. We're very similar. We found a lot of similarities in our personality, but also in our life.
That's
and
right.
And things.
Your husband was playing guitar for one of the events.
I'll go do a little plug. The Wilderness Revival. He is a musician as a hobby. So when I was on the planning committee for the national AGM that took place in Prince Edward Island, when he came down to do our welcome reception, he played music in the background, and that's how we realized that both of our spouses had the musical talent, and then amongst other similar things. So.
And also that we both volunteer them to do things.
Exactly. You know what? We were in a meeting with AAP, and one of the board members said, "Oh, isn't your husband a musician? Maybe he'll come." And at the time, I was planning on going to the conference by myself, and I was like, "Sure." I was like, "I'll double check." And I went out after the meeting, and he's like, "Sure, I'll come." So he ended up taking vacation and coming with me. So that was great.
That is amazing. That's so funny. So that was in PEI. And so tell the people that are listening today where you're based out of.
So I'm in Nova Scotia. I work out of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, so near Halifax. And how I got involved with AAP was actually a connection type thing. So I'm an executive assistant in the day for Lindsay Construction, which is an Atlantic Canadian construction company, typically commercial builds. And we had a marketing intern, Mark, that worked with us for several years. He did an amazing job. And after he wasn't with us anymore, I received a phone call one day, and he said, "I'm working with Think Business, which is one of the partners for the Association of Administrative Professionals." And he said, "They're looking for someone to open up a Nova Scotia branch." And he's like, and I said, "You'd be the perfect person for it." And I was like, that's so cool, because things go in full circle. Years prior, right before I started at Lindsay Construction, I had worked for Doctors Nova Scotia. And when I was applying for jobs, there was an ad that said it would be considered an asset to have a membership with an association. And that was actually the International Association at the time. And when I read that, I thought to myself, I didn't even know that we had an association for our profession. And which is, it's so funny that I didn't know. And when I think back, I bet you they had brought it up in our college days, in the early days. And you know what it's like, your first week at school, you're taking in so much information. So when I read that, I literally remember sitting in my basement, reading that ad, and I said to myself and my husband, I want to be a part of that someday. But I think I'll work on my next career step, because I was moving from administrative professional to executive assistant. So I knew I wanted to focus on that new career. And then once I was comfortable, possibly volunteer. So then fast forward to the phone call with Mark. Since he was a partner with them, and the way the branches work is it's all volunteer run. So they were looking for someone they did have a group in Moncton that had opened up, and they were looking for Nova Scotia. So we had several meetings and decided to go for it. And it's interesting because on one of your podcasts I was listening to, you talk about sometimes we have all these goals of things we want to do first before we jump in. And sometimes it just makes sense to do it even before you're ready, because technically I wanted to sit on another board of directors first and get that experience, but that's when the opportunity came to me. So if I didn't take that, it wouldn't have opened up all the doors that became from that one connection. And it also shows it was an intern that called me. So many people think maybe a president or somebody will help you get an opportunity. It's anyone you meet. You never know who may connect you with the right person to lead you in the next step in your life.
Oh, I love that. And it is so true, right? Like, I think if you keep your eyes open and you're curious about what is in front of you and what's around us. I talk so much about being ready for the opportunity. Like, you don't know what's going to come or in what shape or form that might come. Perfect example. I love that. And what a gift, really to Atlantic Canada right now for you to be leading the team, but your team is separated in different provinces. So it really does make a difference that you've got somebody that has connectedness at the heart of what you do. There's something about it for you. And I think that's why you and I connected so thoroughly when we did. And then, had a great time, running on the cold beach in PEI and taking some reels. And we had some fun. But I think the connection that you and I had was really about an interest in what's next, or an interest in how these small, sometimes even hidden connections can make a difference. Tell us a little bit about what you think connection means to you, sort of big picture. Why does it matter so much to you?
I always think about, with connection, I think it's a feeling. You can connect with so many people, and I'm blessed to connect with people every week from all over. But I really think when it's a natural connection, it's a feeling. Like, you know who your people are. And I think when you surround yourself with people that you naturally connect with, you do great things. Like, I know with you, we had a natural connection. The cool thing about the national conference is all the speakers actually sat at the tables with us. And that doesn't always happen. Sometimes speakers are literally flown in and they do their piece and they leave. And I'm sure it's not necessarily that they don't want to be there, but I think it's maybe just the way their schedule works. So it was really cool that the speakers booked their stay and they also got to learn from each other. And you were at the table with our group. We did these different tasks together and you were right in there with us. And I felt a connection with you. And like you said, we were on the beach because after each session, there's this beautiful beach at Rod Crowbush in PEI, and a group of us went down and did a polar dip, and we did some fun videos. I went down in my business suit in June and sat and the wind was blowing me in my hair. And if anyone wants to check it out, go over to the Instagram of AAP Atlantic. We have some cute little videos that we made, but it shows, if you were to look at the video, there's a video of you and I we had just met that day, like in person, and it was like we were friends for years.
That's right. Oh, and I think people, when you say it's a feeling, I think sometimes people can't put their finger on it, like what exactly it is. And sometimes we get caught up in trying to define it, trying to make it into something that you can duplicate. And there are a lot of business leaders out there, coaches out there, or even authors out there trying to tell us how to make it happen. And I think we can get some tips and tools and some ideas from some of these thought leaders. At the same time, there's some magic to it. And I think if we allow ourselves to not define it or not control it, there can be this surprising element to connection. I think, like you said, we met for the first time in PEI, and it wasn't about me necessarily being a speaker or you being the president of the Atlantic branch. It was really about two people just having a lot of fun and trying to find ways and some cool things, not just to do together, but to explore what could happen if that connection was to grow. I just love that.
Yeah, I know we went for a coffee and just started brainstorming of how we could help each other. And I think that's a lot about what we do is what can you give each other to ultimately help a wider group of people. It's not just, it's never just the two people that you're affecting. If you're a big thinker, that connection can really grow. Like when I think about the association, it's not just Canadians. There are people from all over that joined. For example, one of our board members moved here from Nigeria, and she came here with her husband and kids, not knowing anyone. And she was an admin, so she joined. I think she went on CanadianAdmin.ca, joined with the purpose of making connections. Although it was her profession, she wanted to meet people, so she joined our board. And I just thought that was so cool. When you think about Canadian admin, it doesn't mean that you necessarily were born in Canada. Maybe you were across the world and you decided to come be an admin here. Maybe you, like for example, she was actually a member before she actually lived here. So starting to get to know people and connecting. I just thought that was really cool.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. And I think the openness, what I've noticed, the openness from the association, but I think the individuals in the association, that's really what makes the difference. When you think about as you were growing up, for you, was that something that was showing up for you when you were younger too, or did you grow into it?
Both. It's funny. I feel like there's almost two parts to that answer. So the first part of the answer, when I was quite young, my mom is a natural connector. She was a bank teller at RBC for many years. And I used to call her the mayor of Truro, Nova Scotia, because she knew everyone. We would go through the mall, and I kid you not, we would be there all day because we had to stop over and over again because she was either knowing someone or she was meeting someone, because she's not afraid to talk to anyone. And same with the grocery store. And it's cute. She was very proud of me. Even if I wasn't with her, she'd be talking to the people bringing her groceries in. She's like, "Do you know my daughter? She goes to your high school." And so she's not shy. And it's funny, when I was younger, I was embarrassed. I think when you're a child, you get embarrassed of your parents so easily. And now when I look back, I'm like, I am her now.
I love that.
I maybe not to the extent.
Same thing about my mom. Yeah.
And you know what? We're quite different. I definitely feel like we both have our different connection styles. She's the one thing that she does that I don't is she'll go to the grocery store and she'll pick up a bunch of Timmy's gift cards before she goes, and she'll just go up to random strangers and pass them to them. And I just think she's a giver, and she would give you her last penny. And I just think that's so amazing. So definitely amazing to have someone in my life and now appreciate that. So now maybe I'm not the one going up to strangers at the grocery store, but I do. I am a natural connector. If I'm at a conference, I am not afraid to walk up to anyone and get to know them. I went to a Halifax conference, and there was this amazing speaker, Martina, and there was 500 women in the room. It was just this amazing energy. And I was so lucky that I got to go to that conference and the AAP one around the same time. So I was just built up on so much good energy. And I thought to myself, I want to meet her. Like, she seems really special. And everyone was packing up at the end of the conference and leaving. And I walked over and just introduced myself. And same with her. We were like instant. You would have thought we were friends forever. I was doing a photo shoot of her, and then I went on her podcast too. So I was recently on her podcast. So
amazing.
Definitely a natural connection. So that's the kind of the first piece about how maybe when I was younger, I didn't realize that I would be. the second part to that answer is, I guess I always was a connector. I was that kid in school. It's so funny. I hung out with a lot of people on sports teams, even though I'm personally not athletic. I love like going for walks and swimming and things, but I was never a soccer player, hockey player. But for some reason, I found myself hanging out with them. So I would be with them going to their games, but not actually playing. And then I also was friends with honestly every group in high school and school. And I was always the welcomer of the new people. So if someone, it was their first day, I would go over and sit with them if they were sitting alone and introduce myself and try to introduce them to some people that may have some similar hobbies kind of thing. And I was never one to be embarrassed, because sometimes when you're younger, my friends would be like, "You're going to go over there?" I'm like, "Yes, I am. I'll be back later." And I go over and sit with them. And it didn't necessarily mean that we were going to be lifelong friends, but I just wanted them to be welcomed. And then at least their first day, they had a connection, and then they would naturally make some friends along the way too. And yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, and I think even when we talk about ourselves when we were younger, as much as that was part of you, maybe you saw it modeled by your mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you start to see that it's possible, that's the curious part, right? Like, well, you're going to go sit with them, or you're going to go talk to them. And we do that as adults too, right? We separate ourselves into pockets of who we know or who we're comfortable with or what looks familiar to us. And there's a gift in it. It's not just about you moving to another table and giving a gift to the person that's sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess that you probably had little gifts that were coming out of that conversation for yourself as well.
It's always two-way. There's always things that you can give each other and learn from each other. And it's the world's an amazing place.
It is. And honestly, through COVID, a smaller place too. I think so many of the people that I speak with now, they're surprising themselves with how open the world seems now, where they can have conversations with all sorts of people that they wouldn't have thought otherwise that they could have.
Definitely. I think that any hard time in life, like obviously COVID was a really hard time for many communities, people, and not downplaying how hard that was. But I think there's always good that comes out of everything. And I think that's exactly it. Connection came out of COVID. Look at us, like you're in Calgary, I'm in Nova Scotia, and we're just having a chat right now. I'm sitting on my couch at home, on my vacation, relaxing and getting to speak. And that's another thing, like connection, when it means something, I want to do this on my vacation. I couldn't wait to talk to you. And
Right. Exactly. So you started something called Kate Collabs, and you told me a little bit about it when we were in PEI, but I know that this is a few months beyond. I've seen some posts that you've been putting up. Tell us a little bit what it is and where that spark came from for you to start that.
Okay, so this is my new passion project. A lot of people think it's a business, and I guess naturally it could become a side business. And I am getting some offers, so I think it could definitely be a side business, but it's not something I plan on doing full time at this point. Anyway, I really like what I do as a full time admin in a day, but it's really fun to have this passion project on the side that I truly want to do. Like, I am already a busy person, but for some reason I was feeling drawn to it. And what it was naturally happening anyway. I was doing all these brand collaborations in the background and helping out different brands, but not necessarily showing it off on my end. I was kind of helping in the background. And someone said to me one day, "You should start a blog. Like, you're doing all these things. Like, why don't you show off what you're doing?" And I was like, you know what? I think I will. And I had these goals, kind of like what we talked about earlier, of how I wanted to launch that, everything from a content plan to building a website. And I actually thought in my head, I was like, well, maybe I'll take a year and I'll start building things, taking my time so that when I launch it, all this stuff is ready. But I was so drawn to it. I wanted to start before I was ready. And I just thought to myself, I don't have to have it a certain way. No one knows in my head how I was going to put those things out. So why don't I just start and post as I'm doing things? So for example, if I'm working with someone, why not post about it while I'm doing it and then start to build that content? And maybe the website will come next. Maybe it will be fully Instagram. We'll see. But I have a feeling a website's coming because I have all these ideas that I want to do with it. And it is a lot about connection. Basically what it is it's collaborating with other brands, and we're each our own brand, but coming together and how can we help each other and show each other's brands off and help with strategy and things that I've had the pleasure of learning through my work. I can bring to them, and maybe there's things that they have that they can bring to me. So it's been really cool. I've been having these meetings with these amazing people, and we just have all these big dreams, and we have so many ideas that we're like, okay, like let's take it in baby steps. Maybe we'll do this first and then this. So I think it's going to turn into something even bigger than I thought. So it's pretty cool.
So you have a business development background. So are you bringing those skills and marketing and the connector that you are to these conversations? Do you find that you're drawn to certain types of industries or businesses or people? What do they look like? What are the people that you work with?
I would say the skill set that I got from the work that I do for sure definitely brought into it. So for example, I work in business development in the construction industry. So I support a fellow named Matt Flynn. He's amazing. So I learned a lot from him. And for example, one of the things that I started doing was he was in a football league. And again, I'm not really a sports person, but they needed some help. So I was like, sure, I'll come and make some reels and help with some posting and things like that. So I started helping him on the side, and then same with some other brands. So for example, I work with Zentitude, and she was also a connection. There was a friend of mine said, you have to meet my sister. Like, I just know you two are going to connect. And I think that you guys could really help each other with some things. So she is a holistic coach. So what she brings to me is this amazing energy and energy healing and things like that. And what I bring to her is helping with, we're going to launch her jewelry line. So we're making these plans of how are you going to get that product out there and tell people that it's a thing. And the cool thing about her lines, it's not just these beautiful crystals that you have on your arm. They mean something. So each color means something. And she talks about how when you pick a crystal, it means something. So for example, if you're drawn to the black, it's fighting off negative energy and things like that. And that's all beliefs. Different people believe in different things, but it's kind of cool to come together with people that are a natural fit of what I want to show. So for example, the sports thing is because I truly want to help. And then you could give me any brand and I could make them an Instagram reel. My brain is like a running commercial. So I feel like in a way I could be a content planner fully just helping different brands, but I'm definitely leaning towards the one that speak to me, that means something. So for example, Vicky Mina, I'm really drawn. She's a local makeup artist, and she has really quality, beautiful makeup products that she has made locally and sells them. And I believe in them. So it's if I'm putting something out there, it's because I believe in the brand. I won't just work with anyone. And I'm sure there's a lot of amazing ones. I just can't fit in my time either. But yeah, definitely. Hopefully that was the long answer. Because I ended up answering that.
Well, you know what the answer tells me is that it really is building a community. So there's a collaboration, there's something you're getting from it, but it's beyond a transaction, and it's beyond, you have the business development or the marketing experience and some skills there, and they have a product that they want to sell. That can be a transactional relationship, which is okay too. But what I'm hearing you say is that there's this community that's being built. And the neat thing about that is it starts to grow into others that are also like-minded and have that same spirit and the same energy. And it can't help but grow, because then it becomes something that is far beyond you or you and one other person, or even you in a small group, because there's a bigger energy to it. So that's an amazing, and talk about collaboration, like in the works, and that you started it before you thought you were ready.
Exactly. And I think with the brands that I'm working with, you'll notice they all are big picture people. So yeah, makeup and jewelry are pretty, but like if you speak with those women that started those, it's big picture. I'll literally help people. It's something I do as a hobby. It's not necessarily wasn't going to be a business. I literally was just going to show off these amazing women and what they're doing. And there's some men too. And a few of them have reached out and offered me things. Like somebody said to me in our meeting, I'd like to offer you commission. And I was like, well, that's not even what I'm doing this for. So it's like amazing that you want to share that with me. Like, that's so cool. So it's cool how all the stuff just naturally turns into something big.
Yeah. So what are you finding for yourself? Like this is a big one for you moving forward from here. Are you finding that when you're kind of looking at your discussions around your career moving forward, your business, or this collaboration moving forward, even your time with AAP, do you see that there's been a shift for you over the last, I'll say 10 months, because it feels like this summer has been a bit of a reawakening for people. So what is it for you? Where are you excited about going in the next months?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a shift because I am somebody who's multi-passionate, multi-interested. So I can tend to overbook myself because I just have so many things I'm passionate about. Like I'm passionate about my work. So when my first few years at my office, I overworked. I would stay into the evenings because I just wanted to keep getting things done. And I have these amazing leaders that saw that and we did a review of what was I doing. So for example, I was hired as an executive assistant, but I was all of a sudden kind of trickling into more business development and more marketing and even some IT back end database stuff because I'm just so interested. And I guess even beyond the 10 months, the thing that I've shifted is balance. Of course, I would love to clone myself and work 24 hours a day and volunteer 24 hours a day and do the clubs and be social. But I guess the biggest shift for me is balance and being realistic with the time that you have. So for example, when I'm at work, I'm committed to being there. When I book certain times of the week for volunteer, and that's when I'm committed to them. And then the clubs actually is more naturally, when do I feel like doing it? Like if I want to do it in the evening, if I want to do it in the morning, whenever I'm feeling drawn to it, that's when I put it in, unless I committed to somebody, a meeting or something. So I guess being really mindful of the time that we give, because it's so easy to give extra and it's so easy to look at the things we're not getting to, but trying to focus on, okay, instead of being like, this has been on my list for a while, I'm not getting to that. Okay, but what did you do in the day? You did a lot of things today in a lot of different areas. And I think we all have to be a little easy on ourselves because sometimes it feels like it's never enough for ourselves and others. And we have to remind ourselves, you are enough and you're actually doing a lot. So I try to look at my week at a time, and I've actually been sectioning it out in sections. So my work, my volunteer, collabs, connection time, I actually have a block that says connection, and I make a goal of somebody I'm going to connect with every day. And it could be anyone from a family member to a friend, just making sure that I don't get so wrapped up in my work that I forget, because there are times where I may not call a family member for a while because I'm such in a zone. Like I'm a doer, and I have to actually add it to my list sometimes. Like I need to make sure I check in with the other day I actually put it on the list. I'm going to check in with my mother-in-law on the way home, and I'm going to check in with my mom the next day. And I literally put them on the list. Of course, that naturally does happen too. But when you are really busy, you have to schedule that in. And I've also been doing journal review. So I'll look back the week and where did I put my time? And you start to see what you're really drawn to and how you can kind of keep shifting and how can you get those things done that you're not getting to. So, yeah,
it's really incredible. I think I am very much the same way. I'm very schedule driven and color coded on my calendar.
Love it.
What's for me and what's for everyone else. And, everyone else can be split into multiple things as well, multiple projects. And what a reminder. And I know for many that are planning events and coming out of what was sort of the lockdowns and shake up as far as how do we run events, and then now that things are opening up again in Canada here anyway, I feel like there's a lot of intensity and there's a lot of push and drive and excitement. But I think it's leaving people a little scrambled, a little bit burnt out, feeling like they've been putting their all, and I'll speak for myself as well. This has been a very, very busy event planning summer for me. And so I was saying to my husband the other day, we've had an incredibly sunny, beautiful summer. I'm like, I haven't seen a lot of the sun this summer, but I think you're right. Like, I think we have to really take care of ourselves and take care of our schedules. And if connection is important to us, that it does become something that either, formally or informally, we're scheduling into our day. And I love the idea of a journal review. What a great idea for all of us to maybe take the time, number one, to journal or to make some notes on what's going on for us during the week, but then be intentional about how we move into the next week.
You know what, working with Senitude, one of the things, so what we do with our time, so our collaboration is we're very intentional of when we're meeting on what. So for example, yesterday we had a meeting and it was all kind of high level marketing plan, a little bit of brand. So there's almost like two sections I do for her. One is a brand ambassador, but one is the marketing side. And the marketing is more like big picture, analytics, all that stuff. And then the brand ambassador is showing off her items. But then on the other front, what she gives to me is this mental health coaching. So when we book our time, it's very intentional. So it's either a meeting for her or it's a meeting for me. We try not to do combining because it can get intertwined, and if it naturally happens a little bit, that's okay. But the time before when we met, it was a full mental health coaching, and we literally had a call. It was actually the day before my last podcast, and we talked about setting intentions before I got on there, and I went down there with some really big energy. I feel like she came with me to that call. And yesterday I was on a call with her before yours, but that was her time. So I was more focused on the marketing, and selfishly, I would love to have brought some intentional setting with her and stuff, but you have to be really mindful of like being fair to each other's time. And, but the journal thing came from her. She actually said recently, I've been trying to journal every week. So it's not necessarily every day, but it's definitely a few times a week. And she was saying, she wants me to do a journal review where I go back for a period of time and literally look, what were the trends? What were the things that made me feel good? What were the things that didn't make me feel good? So that we can really talk about that and dig in. And is there any change that need to be made? And I thought, that's a really good idea. It will take some time, and I'm an analytics person, so I'll probably rate each day and put it in a spreadsheet and have you'll see like a curve chart or something. I'm like definitely a bit of a nerd too, but yeah, I wish I could clone myself. There's so many things I want to do, and there's just never enough minutes.
Maybe you'll have a collaborator that can actually follow you as you're reviewing your journal and make those charts for you, and you'll be so happy. You'll get to see
a team. I'm an executive assistant. I need my own executive assistant.
Yes, you do. That's awesome. I love that. I think the whole idea of being intentional, and it's so clear in the work that you do in your life, and I know you grew up with it with your mom being the person that she was, and for better or worse, I think all of us have that background of where was it showing up for us, even if we were a little embarrassed when we were kids, how our parents or maybe friends were connecting, but when we start to see the benefit of that really makes such a difference in the world. So Caitlyn, a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, they are event planners, or they are people that plan events within the context of their work or their life or their community investment. Tell us a little bit about where you're planning events in your world. What does it look like for you?
Sure. I'm definitely a natural event planner, from everything from socially with my friends to organize events. So usually in the workplace, I am on committees that are planning events. So at my office right now, I actually just stepped down from a committee just because I'm trying to be mindful of how much time I'm giving to things. But I've always been involved in events, whether it was in school and committees and work, socially. One of the events that I enjoy doing is for our family business. So my family owns an RV park, so where members come to the beach to camp for the season. And there was a period of time where I was quite involved, and I would do the adult events and my sister would do the children events, as my time kind of has shifted towards volunteer work with AAP and the collabs. I've actually stepped back and I only do a couple events for them, but it could be anything from a wine tasting on the beach to something more organized. So yeah, I'm somebody with events. I like to have a critical path if it's something more official. So if it's a business event, I literally have a chart and I have the topic, I have who the person is, any notes, and a status. So basically, is it finished? Is it pending? So I like to be organized if it's a business event. I'm a little bit more laid back if it's a family business. So for example, the people that attend the wine night get this fun side of me that's more of my outgoing side. But then if you get me at a business event, it's more professional. So I get to dabble in lots of different events. So that's been really fun.
And so how do you think that might feed into the collabs?
You know what? I'm already thinking about events. I am looking at doing, so last summer I had a social event. It was just some girlfriends, personal friends, work friends, people that I'm with in business groups. And I called it the funeral of summer. So we all wore black and we went to this local beautiful bar. It's called Five Social. And we had food and drinks and everyone got to meet each other. So I brought all these different groups of people together and they were connecting. So for example, one of my girlfriends from high school was meeting a colleague of mine and they hit it off. And it was kind of going to be a one-time thing, but there's a handful of women that came to me and said, "Are you doing the funeral of summer this year?" And so as of yesterday, I'm like, I'm going to do this. I think I might make it kind of the first hour, a collaboration, like Kate Collab. So if you're somebody who's an exclusive collaboration with me, so that's someone who I work with quite a bit, we'll have a cocktail and you'll get to meet the other people that I'm collaborating with, females, because this will be a ladies event. And then as the night goes on, that's when the guest list will turn into some friends and colleagues and things like that. And then I picture with time as this grows, we'll let the men join as well. I do love a ladies' night. There's just the energy that comes when it's all females. And so that will be a ladies' night. And then later on, when this grows, I'm definitely going to have a huge party where I invite anyone who impacted my life with Kate Collabs or any area of my life, and we'll just have a huge party.
And I know you're very busy planning for the AAP Atlantic branch events coming up. Do you want to give us a little bit of a teaser on what you might be offering for the members this year?
Yes, if you are an admin that lives in Atlantic, Canada, we are actually recruiting for the program position. So we had an awesome programs board member that her term is now up. So when we're looking for someone else. So in the meantime, our group is working together to put our schedule of events together. We have a professional development day that we're working on right now. And what that will be, it will be for anyone who's an administrative professional that is looking for board experience. So say you want to join a board, but you don't know what that entails. We'll come into the day and you'll learn the basics of a board. How are meetings run? What are the rules? What are the expectations? So we'll talk a bit about that in the morning. And then we'll also talk about possibly recruitment and retention. That's really big with boards, but it's also big in offices. So we'll have these different things that we'll bring for members to learn. We're looking to have Lisa as well. So we're hoping to end the day with her as well. So this is all tentative planning right now. So it's all up in the air, but that is our hope. Stay tuned. If you're not a member, go on to canadianadmin.ca, join today. It is worth every penny. It's under $200 to join, and that's your whole year of events. So you get access to past events that national and locally have put on, but you also get to join and be in person. So if you're an admin and you're not part of the association, you'll probably want to join because we have some amazing things coming up.
As we wrap, this has been so much fun chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Me too.
As we wrap up today, I do ask all of my guests, because I think it's so important that we, again, and it's so clear you're already doing this, but that we go beyond our own world, our own connections and the things that we find familiar. And I'm hoping as people listen in and they're listening to season 2 of what the Connector Next Door podcast is really meant to be, that they're going to be able to take some nuggets for themselves. So my dad always used to talk about the golden nugget. What's the golden nugget? Like he used to love his, we used to call them New Year's cookies or New Year's kuchen in my world. And it had to have a lot of raisins. And he always talked about this great golden nugget, but he was a speaker, a pastor. And for him, he always wanted to bring it down to something that someone could take home and start making a difference in their life or doing things a little bit different. For you, when you look at the nugget of what you could be putting out in the world as a natural connector, what could we learn from? What could we take with us so that we can be better connectors in our world?
I think just continue to go with what's natural to you. If you're a natural connector, use that to your advantage. How can you help others with that? Because every time you help others, it honestly just opens up doors. Like it's amazing. I think that's my main thing, but also being mindful of your own mental health and health in general. Try not to do it at the extent of yourself. So sometimes we want to do so much that you don't want it to affect you with burnout. So if you can find a way to feel your passion each week, but also be mindful that it it takes time. Not everything needs to be instant, and be okay with some people not being okay with that. Advice from the president at my company, Corey Bell, said to me once, it's okay for people to wait. And that was big for me, because when I was staying in the night, I didn't want to make anyone wait for me. I wanted to write everyone back same day. I wanted projects to be done instantly, but that did come at the extent of my own health. So that sentence stuck with me. And now there's people in my life that are newer in my life. So for example, the people I volunteer with, they probably would have loved me, because there's things on my list in my volunteer work that probably would have been done right away. But now, because I took that advice from him, ultimately I am a better person to them. Even if there are some things waiting on my list, I am getting the big picture stuff done, and I'm putting people first. So I will always be there for a board member if they need me for something. So I guess that's my main two things.
And what a great way to end our conversation today, Caitlyn. What a joy it is to know you, and always leaving our conversations feeling amazing and motivated for what's next. So thank you so much again for being here today. How can people connect with you if they want to continue this conversation?
Sure. So professionally, please send me a message if you listen today. I'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn. It's Caitlyn Hamblin, and we'll have that connected so you can link right on there. If you're a creator and you enjoy seeing different fun brands, definitely send me a message on Instagram. It's Kate_collabs, and you'll see everything from restaurants and travel that I'm doing to my favorite brands, and come enjoy that with me.
Thank you for being here today. So appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you soon.
The Connector Next Door podcast is produced by Candy Event Consulting, where everyday event planners and their teams gain clarity, get connected, and grow in confidence. Subscribe at www.candyconsulting.ca to hear visits with everyday event planners who are putting connections first.